Hey everybody, welcome to Raising Vibrations, and in this video I want to talk to you about the 4 ways that Pluto enacts its evolution. I'm actually really excited for this video because I think there's a huge potential that we can gain from understanding how Pluto works within our natal charts and how the actual experience is facilitating a soul growth with our personal soul and life stories. So my aim with you today really is to give you the understanding and the mechanics behind how Pluto works so that you can then go back and reflect on these experiences that you've had in your life and be able to make a conscious attachment and understanding of these dynamics. Because the problem here is that we have these Pluto experiences in our lives, okay? We go through Pluto transits. And often we experience them as, wow, this was in a really intense period of my life. And I bet you, when you look back at any Pluto transit that you've had, your language, your experience of it, mostly is, wow, this was really intense. Some of us maybe had positive experiences. A lot of people walk away from the experience feeling like they've just been kind of overwhelmed by something, and there's a lot of loss and a lot of sadness and grief that comes along with these transits. So we kind of don't have the ability to integrate what those experiences are like so that we can see what our personal soul is about. So this is a problem, right? We don't have the ability to relate to and understand these Pluto dynamics. And again, how that affects us is that we are unable to consciously relate to these experiences and see, okay, that's why that transit's happening, because it's acting out this evolutionary intention that my soul is on at this point. So the way that we're going to go about doing this is that I'm going to give you the 4 ways that Pluto enacts itself, and then you're going to go back and you're going to go and reflect on these experiences and integrate and see which evolutionary pattern was present in your life at the time of a transit, a major transit, an important Pluto transit. And then you're going to cross-correlate, and hopefully you'd be able to walk away with not only a connection to the nature of your astrology chart and what your soul is trying to do in this lifetime, but also be able to then integrate some of the experiences so you can see the possibility and the potential that is held when we look at Pluto transits. So exciting stuff, and as I said, I hope that there's some value in this for you. All right, so let's just begin. Pluto, how does Pluto enact itself? Number 1, okay, the first way that Pluto can enact itself. Now, this is the most intense out of the 4. It's not something that we always experience, but I'm sure there are a few of you that have had this experience occur. So Pluto enacts itself in one way through cataclysmic change, all right? A very intense process of a complete elimination of your emotional and psychological attachment to your work, to a house, to a loved one, your grandparent, anything that is symbolic to you, that you have a strong emotional attachment on, that all of a sudden just gets taken away. So one of the ways that this can, or a few ways that this can look like in your life is, and it always comes through a deep surrender. So that's the key with the cataclysmic experience, right? The intention is to eliminate all pre-existing emotional and psychological attachments relative to that reality. So to eliminate it, right? And the way that it comes across is it's like it just cuts it out. It's like it's gone. And oftentimes it's shock. It's like, whoa, this was unexpected. So your relationship that you have for a long period of time, all of a sudden you realize that somebody has betrayed you or cheated on you, or an extreme where you lose a partner, or you lose a child, or you lose a parent, right? Sudden. There are also patterns where, say somebody, like you're growing up in a country and there is a sudden change that needs to take place. Or you're in a work environment and, you know, the work environment, the workplace just closes down. It's like, so we can't exist anymore for whatever reason. And it's this shock that removes the nature of your emotional and psychological attachment to the object or to the work or to the people, that leaves you in this kind of loss, this really intense, deep process of loss. And this is where the most amount of therapy, I think, is needed when processing these types of events in your life. Now the question becomes, well, why would something cataclysmic happen like that? And I would say that there's not any necessary direct answer to that, but in most cases when you're studying charts, you'll see that there is a complete elimination and ending of an evolutionary cycle that's taking place. Like the soul can maybe be fixated on this pattern so much that the only way to actually change the pattern is to eliminate it. In those sense, it can even go as far as like the elimination of a certain cancer in one's body, an amputation of a leg. It can be, these types of things where there's an actual visceral loss that takes place. Okay, so pretty intense in that one. Now, the way that Pluto can enact itself, number 2, and this one's a lot more lighter, is through a process of progressive attachment through curiosity and inquiry. So what happens is that your world is just going along your road, and say a best friend or somebody comes into your field. Maybe you meet somebody at a party or at a social experience, or you go out somewhere and somebody crosses your path, and generally there's an invitation / opening to a new world. Okay, and again, it doesn't have to be dramatic. It can be something subtle that just passes you by, and what happens is you become fixated on it. There's a curiosity that says, oh, tell me more. So an example I can give you is somebody comes to you and they're like, I've just found this like Saturn return thing. Do you know what this is about? No. It's like, I've been reading this Saturn return. It's between the ages of 28 and 31, and it has this effect, and it's helped me really understand my life. And this curiosity peaks in you, like, oh, okay, what is this? Tell me more. And there's an underlying element of empowerment, like there's an attachment that's starting to form relative to this new piece of information or reality that's coming into your life. And it can be anything, The mechanic is that something comes into your life that you're not looking for or that you were interested in. It just came in, and it starts to shape and draw you into, and it starts to open you up to new vistas, right? New ways of looking at reality. And there's this progressive osmosis, a merging with, an inquiry, a curiosity that leads you to progressively tumble down a rabbit hole and find yourself in a completely new environment, a new place. So that's how Pluto enacts itself, number 2, well, one of the ways, and that's probably the most common way that Pluto can enact itself, right? It's a progressive opening up to a new world. Now, another way that Pluto can enact itself, and this is number 3, so the third way that Pluto can enact itself is through a process of internal and external limitation and crisis, okay? So it's kind of a combination of 1 and 2, but not as intense as number 1 and not as subtle as number 2 in terms of the way that it comes into your life. So the way that this will work is that, there is an actual pattern within your soul's story that needs to be eliminated, okay? So an example could be within relationships. The last 3 relationships have all given you the feedback that this is a behaviorism that seems to be detrimental or negative for your life. It is the illumination or the exposure to a certain pattern of behavior that is a limitation within yourself. And that can come through an external crisis or an internal crisis. Either way, the mechanic forces you to inwardly reflect on certain patterns of limitations that are within you that must be confronted and eliminated in order for you to move forward within a certain way of being. Now, of course, this pattern can stay with you. You can ignore it, you can consciously work for a bit, but at some point it will then arise to a place within your life where it must be eliminated, okay? So it's a pattern of attachment, it's a pattern of behavior, it's a psychological and emotional attachment to something that now comes into very acute focus within your life, like you get this feedback consistently, and again, it's external or internal. You address that pattern, and what happens when addressing that pattern is it actually opens you up to a possibility of something new. And this is the binary that happens with Pluto enacting itself in number 3, right? Or another way that Pluto can act its evolution. It's got this binary effect where limitation, crisis leads to recognition, an adjustment process, and then you begin to look and symbolize, like you begin to look outside of yourself and see something that symbolizes an empowerment path. Okay? So you begin to then notice a therapy that might help to heal this specific pattern. And so you merge with this pattern, with this therapy, and it helps you in some way, shape, or form. Now you actually have, through osmosis with learning this therapy, you have now become empowered in this space. So not only has this limitation caused you to address it, or this crisis asked you to address it, you've also then needed to empower yourself by attaching to a symbol, whatever that may be. It can be therapist, a relationship, a job, an education, whatever that might be, right? The symbol represents something empowering to you, like a solution, and you merge with it and osmose with it, and it becomes internalized within you, and you carry it with you as a pattern of empowerment. And so you move through with your life with this empowered perspective within you. So that's the third way that Pluto can enact evolution within our lives. Yeah. Now, the fourth way, or final way, that Pluto can enact itself, and I think this one's kind of cool in many ways, although it can be very confusing or challenging initially, is that there is a time-released experience or event within the consciousness of the soul that is now being activated with a Pluto transit. Okay, so you're born into your life, you get to the age of like 31, 32, and then all of a sudden there's this energy that is starting to come into your awareness that's pulling you into a reality. And it's like, hold on, I feel like this is a destiny. I feel like this is something I've got to do. And so you're forming a conscious relationship to something that is emerging from your unconscious into yourself. And you're starting to go, I need to do this, right? It becomes almost like an obsession. So what I'm trying to say here with number 4 is that there's a time-released activation that you are then responding to that leads you on a journey. And that can be unconsciously driving you, or you can become more conscious of the process. Again, in this environment or this situation, you also will identify a series of empowered symbols that will reflect the thing that you want to empower within yourself. And so Pluto will merge with that process. It will seek it out. You will seek it out and you will merge with it, and it becomes a part of your process. And you become a vehicle of actualization of that Pluto desire, right? So the desire gets awoken, and then you're like, oh, I've got to action this. And then you go through the process of watching this desire nature fulfill itself through you. And so you become actualized relative to this desire. So that's the 4 ways that Pluto can actualize itself. And these are the mechanics. So what you want to do now is you want to go back to your astrology chart, go re-listen to the way that this video, how I presented it, go back to your astrology charts, reflect back on these experiences of major transformations in your life, and see which one fits into the experience that you had. And then through that process, begin to then connect with your astrology chart, right? Not only connect with it, but realize that the astrology is reflecting your story, your karmic evolutionary pattern, right? Your myth, as it were, and it's enacting that. So look at the symbol, right? Let's say it's Pluto conjunct the moon, and it might have come through the home or the mother. Pluto conjunct Mercury, Pluto square Mercury, Pluto opposed Mercury. Maybe you went through a deep intellectual crisis in which new information needed to come into your world to accelerate you forward, whatever that may be. So you want to go and look at those patterns and understand how these dynamics are taking place in your life, okay? So one of the things that's really intriguing to me currently right now is that we all know that Pluto has moved into Aquarius, right? So it's going to retrograde back into Capricorn, but then go back into Aquarius again. And it's exciting because we are, humanity, at a point where we're going to experience new ways of how Pluto is going to enact our evolution in this new sign, right? In other words, Pluto's going through Aquarius. How is it going to change us? What cataclysmic events are we going to go through? What new cycles and attachments are we going to experience? What new destinies are we going to fulfill? And one of the cool things about it is that this is also happening for us individually within our charts as well, right? So there's this huge potential to really see our stories unfold relative to this Aquarius energy. So that's why I also want to let you know that if you want to and are interested in exploring that for yourself, and you want to be able to be getting really clear on what that might mean, then there's a possibility of me actually being able to help you as well. So down below in the description, there is a link to a little form that if you want to connect with me and you want to see if there's a possibility to work with you, then fill out the form so I can get a good idea of what your needs are and where you're currently at in your life right now. And once you've done that, book a free 15-minute call with either me or somebody on my team. We'll have a discussion and we'll see, hey, look, there's actually an opportunity to help you here, answer some of your soul questions, be able to get you to really get aligned with this Pluto and Aquarius energy and applying some of the tools that I've shared with you today. So if that sounds something that you're interested in, check the description below. There's a link, and this is how you can work with me on a more long-term basis as well. Okay. All right, guys. So don't forget to watch this video over here if you would like to take what you've learned today, plus how I actually break down the core evolutionary intention of Pluto, because if you put these two things together, you'd be able to have a deep understanding. So there's the video again on the screen. Check it out. And until another video, bye.